Okay, Dylan Esper writes, one of the under-discussed problems with the Israel equals apartheid analogy is if Israel's an apartheid state, who is the Palestinians' Mandela, the leader who will deliver for them without recriminations against the oppressor group? There isn't one. So what is your response to this tweet?
I think firstly, it just makes an assumption about Mandela, which is historically inaccurate. Mandela is being reduced now to this like grandfather, sort of defanged figure, but actually Mandela was at the head of the armed struggle in South Africa. People don't want to talk about that. I think that
let me just inject one video clip of Mandela, and then we'll throw it back to you. But this is actually a clip of Mandela speaking in Gaza in 1999, and you'll see why I'm showing this, because it speaks to what you just brought up.
Choose peace.
Choose peace
rather than confrontation, except in cases where we cannot proceed. Where we cannot move forward. Then, if the only alternative is violence, we will use violence.
His comments won him applause from leader Yasser Arafat and the Assembly. Many Palestinians worship Mandela. Posters bearing his image cover walls throughout Gaza. Others say, our dreams will come true through your support. Pupils at the Shati refugee school waited for hours to greet him. When he arrived, they lined up to shake his hand and bewildered him with blessings in Arabic. Inside a cramped classroom, Mandela received more affection. Students greeted him with a song in English. Good morning, we're happy to hear you. The trip to Gaza concludes Mandela's visit to the region, where for the first time he's been trying his hand at Middle East peace diplomacy.
Okay, so that kind of, I thought, was a perfect example of what you were saying. But it seems like there are two sides of this same coin, right? One is that Palestinians haven't tried peaceful resistance, and Mandela only embraced peaceful resistance, right? Those are the two premises of this tweet. So yeah, but back to you, Sean, and then back to you, Tony.
I mean, so my other quick, and then I'll be quiet. One is the structural conditions to have a Mandela to emerge. That's not allowed. You're like, oh, we need a Mandela, but any Mandela who appears, you cut them down,
kill them. Right?
Exactly.
I can't agree with that.
My last point is, it also puts all this emphasis on the oppressed. They must bring us a Mandela.
No, but the reason I say I can't accept that is because you are now talking about a Mandela as a magician, or somebody who makes a 180-degree turn. It's like, no, if Mandela had died 5 years before the end, the outcome would have been exactly the same. Mandela was always part of a collective leadership, the ANC's policies, deeply ingrained in its institutions and in its practices, because it had so many white comrades actually making supreme sacrifices in every level of the struggle. There was no question about, this thing, I was going to say this earlier, this idea, the white genocide fear. I think it was Cedric Robinson, actually, who notes, this thing has always been there in situations where, in the name of whiteness, Black people are colonized or enslaved. And there's always this fear of the terrible retribution, which is just projection. Because if you look at history, the number of times, the scale, yes, of course, white people have been killed here and there, in slave rebellions, et cetera, et cetera. You look at the scale, it's not this. It's a fable. It's basically projection of like they are going to do to us what we've always done to them. And why do you believe that? Why do you think actually that your inhumanity is somehow going to be reflected in the people you've dehumanized? Sorry, but so I don't think that there's a question about a Mandela being somebody who says, "Whoa, we were going to kill them all, but now we're going to actually hug them." No, that's always been the culture of the ANC. As you say, Sharon, like the Palestinian movements have never had an option for pursuing justice, because that's what was Mandela's bottom line, without using violence. That's never been on the cards. The Nakba began in 1948, or maybe a few years before, and it's never ended. There's never been an end to the violent displacement of Palestinians for this greater Israel expanding ethnostate by violence. That question is, as you say, is based on twin fallacies, one about Mandela and the other about Palestinian history. Palestinian movements have always entertain. I don't think they've articulated it sufficiently or in an engaging and hegemonic way, but they've always, had formulations about who belongs in a liberated Palestine that haven't been like basically denying any humanity of the oppressor.
Well, yeah, this sounds like we could continue this debate. I mean, you guys are mostly in agreement, but there's a little bit of disagreement. That's always fun. We always love that. Do you guys want to respond? I mean, this is such a great place to end, but I do feel like I want to just leave people with, like, I still see people in the chat who are saying, no, there are all these laws against white people in South Africa. And here's something, I just want to show a tweet from Elon Musk. South Africa has now passed 142 laws forcing discrimination against anyone who is not Black. Even though I was born in South Africa, the government will not grant Starlink a license to operate simply because I'm not Black. This is a shameful disgrace to the legacy of the great Nelson Mandela, who sought to have all races treated equally in South Africa. So actually, this is a perfect thing to end on, because it brings up the Mandela issue and also the issue of what people like to call reverse racism, which obviously is not a thing, but yeah.
But that's whiteness. That is basically saying any move, and you see this here in America, any move to redress historical racist injustice, it can be cast as, but any move against white privilege, which is not exactly earned, it's created by violence historically, but any move against it can be deemed hostile to whiteness. It is hostile to whiteness. It's not necessarily hostile to white people, but any affirmative action, for example, as we see in the US courts, is deemed to be, oh, this is hostile to white people. So Musk is saying, this neoliberal, because it is a neoliberal solution, which was Black economic empowerment, where they moved from a redistributive model of economic planning to one that was basically going to empower. Black economic empowerment meant the creating of a Black capitalist class by insisting on 30% ownership of any corporation in Black hands. And obviously a lot of that went to politically connected, billionaires, which Cyril himself actually is an example of that. He's a mine owner. He used to be the Secretary General of the National Union of Mine Workers, and now he's mine owner in part. So yes, class issues never entirely went away. What Musk is saying there is like any move that basically challenges white privilege is anti-white. Well, okay, that's...
Yeah.
I mean, my quick word on this is, if you can check out something like Africa Check, these are like fact checker websites, including, by the way, actually I'll end on this, including Musk's own Grok, or what is it? I forgot what it's called.
Grok, yeah, Grok, yeah.
Yeah, Grok, actually, I don't know if you remember, Grok had a meltdown when Grok was like, well, my owner is telling me that I should say there's a white genocide and there are race-based laws when there isn't. So even Musk's own Grok told him it's not. Yeah. I mean, it's just part of the bigger fallacy, which, as we said earlier, has nothing to do with South Africans. And it's basically a small group who just can't get used to living in a society in which they are not at the center of the society and their privileges aren't always being protected.